Morning guys, today we're going to be talking about another group of fish. Much like the glassies that we spoke about, we're going to be talking about a group of fish rather than an individual species itself. These that we're talking about are going to be the mullet. Now, mullet go by a whole lot of different names, but in general, if you talk about a mullet, people know what you're talking about versus going into the individual common names for the species. You're looking at three main genuses. There are a few more, I think about 5 or so, but you're looking at Mugil cephalus, which is your flathead mullet, often called a bull mullet as well. Very, very big head, big eyes, and they've got that flattened top part of their head like that. But yeah, that's one of the bigger mullet that we get. You get them up to about 80 centimeters in length. Not very commonly caught, but they are still, they do catch them every now and again, little bits of sardine. Then the next two species, talk about them together, but because they fall into the same genus, but they're two different sets. It's Lisa tricuspidens and Lisa richardsonii. So tricuspidens, the name comes from three-pointed teeth. So their teeth are actually they're very, very tiny, but they got 3 points to them. They are your striped mullet. Now the striped mullet is probably the most caught mullet in terms of rod and line angling, not in terms of netting, but you can actively target them, especially in KZN. They are very, very strong fish. They're often called springer, but in my mind that's incorrect, because springer is now Elops marshata. It's a completely different fish. But yeah, that's where common names become a little bit tricky. Excuse the rant. But yeah, striped mullet, they overall sort of cylindrical, but their stomach is slightly more distended. So you've got a cylinder type fish, but the stomach pushes down a little bit more, so it becomes a bigger area. Very, very silvery, got the scales in them, and they've got these stripes that run all the way along the body. Smallish head and mouth for the size of the fish, and they mainly feed by what we call detrital feeding. So they actually filter through the sand. They pick up sand and they filter it through their gill rakers, and then they pick out anything that's sort of worth eating. They do also pick stuff off the surface. So much like glassies and a lot of other opportunistic fish, they're going to take small insects that blow onto the surface. They will take little bits of fish. So when it comes to targeting them, the secret is firstly a white float. You want to make it out of a broomstick handle painted white. That gives you enough weight to cast it as far as you can. And then you do a little, similar to a carp rig, a baby shoe trace. You've got a 3-way swivel, 2 short little hook snoots, probably about that long max, with 2 tiny little hooks. I use the little ring chinus, the smallest size I can get my hands on. And then you take the bread and you break it into little squarish size pieces, and you just rig it onto there, so you get almost 2 little legs sticking out the bottom of the float. Throw that out, let it drift around, and you're in with a very good chance of catching a mullet. Otherwise, little bits of sardine work very well on the coast, and yeah, the guys do also cast net for them and seine net for them. Your other species that we mentioned, Lisa richardsonii, that is what we call the hardo down in the Cape. So that's the fish that they dry out and they salt, and it turns into bokkoms. If you've ever had bokkoms, it's an experience. But yeah, that's the Lisa richardsonii. Also very, very similar. All these guys mature, the bigger guys, so your bluetail mullet, your flathead mullet, your striped mullet, all matured around 40 centimeters, so quite a big fish. And then your hardo, your richardsonii, is going to mature around 20 centimeters, because they're generally a slightly smaller fish. They don't grow as big, probably to about 60 centimeters or so. But yeah, mainly for them, you don't really catch them on bait or anything, but you will get them on with a cast net or with a seine net in an estuary. So all these fish utilize estuaries. So another good example, good cause to protect the estuaries, not to throw your litter away in that, because that all gets washed into the estuaries. And pollution does obviously cause a decline in their abundance. But yeah, the mullet is an extremely important food fish. They in the east are highly regarded. They've got very nice flesh and very white flesh, and a very nice firm flesh for the fish. But yeah, very, very important prey fish. They're eaten by pretty much any fish that you can imagine, including garrick's probably the most common, and cob. And then down in the Cape, your bronze whalers really, really love a mullet, especially if you can skin it. And also the smooth hounds. Literally anything you can think of will eat a mullet. But yeah, they're fairly slow maturing, but they are quite prevalent. They're not a very rare species in general. And yeah, as we mentioned, quite a few different species within the different genuses, but you can treat them as a whole. Most of them are very similar. So yeah, mullets, very important fish, very tasty fish. They basically detritivores, feeding on little copepods and all that kind of stuff. It's in the sand, and yeah, very important bait. Nice to eat if you want to. Cheers, guys.